Understanding risk is always important. We do a phenomenal job, in my opinion, of understanding somebody's risk tolerance. And risk, in my opinion, is two different things. One is, how do you feel about risk? And then two, is that risk that you're taking going to keep you on track for your goals? So those two things both need to be taken in consideration.
Hello, this is Mark Silverman, managing member and founder of Silverman & Associates, and I'm also a certified financial planner professional. I want to welcome you to the Saving with Silverman podcast. I'm glad you're here. Each week, we'll discuss different financial planning topics because making smarter choices about your money impacts the quality of your life.
This is Saving with Silverman with Mark Silverman, your certified financial planner professional, founder, and the managing member of Silverman & Associates in Tucson. And wherever you are in southern Arizona, thanks for listening today. You can find out more about Mark by going to his website, savingwithsilverman.com. That is savingwithsilverman.com. The number to call or text if you'd like to arrange a 15 to 20-minute introductory phone call is 520-333-7601. That is 520-333-7601. Again, call or text 520-333-7601. Mark, when we talk about planning for retirement or whatever it is, it's all about the Benjamins. I know you've heard that saying. All about the Benjamins. Almost everybody likes the idea of a healthy bank account. But what are some of the possible uses of cash that make it a good idea to have a sufficient amount of cash on hand?
Well, I think everybody needs to have a certain amount of cash, emergency funds, whatever you want to call it, reserve. As a certified financial planner professional, we recommend somebody have 3 to 6 months worth of expenses liquid at all times. Some of our retired people, we'll do is we'll even take it even one step further. We'll have 12 months worth of expenses. I think somewhere in that range is acceptable. Anything more than that can be dangerous because you're not keeping up with inflation. And, we saw money market rates, obviously interest rates are at an all-time low still, but we saw money market rates abnormally high last year. And so they've started to come back down again because they're reinvesting at lower rates. So rates have come back down substantially than what they used to be. And so, like I said before, if you're not making it at least 3% net of fees and expenses, you're really losing it to inflation. But again, you have to have enough reserves, emergency funds in case something happens. Your air conditioning breaks, your car breaks down, whatever it might be. If you have less than that, that could be problemsome because you need to be able to access that money without penalties or expenses and taxes, et cetera. So it's important to do that. And, one of the big issues I see is in some of these annuity sales, people end up putting too much of somebody's net worth into annuities, which are not liquid products. And those can be a problem where somebody pays abnormally high surrender charges to get out of those sorts of things. So you want to make sure you keep enough liquidity to cover those type of expenses.
Mark, people often ask us how much is appropriate to have in cash. How do you normally come to a conclusion on that? How much is correct?
Well, it depends. And as I just mentioned, the general guideline as a certified financial planner, what we're taught to teach people is 3 to 6 months worth of expenses. So if your expenses are $5,000 a month, you should have anywhere between $15,000 to $30,000 liquid at all times. Like I mentioned before, with some of our retired clients, we'll take that even a little bit more conservative. Maybe we'll have $60,000 cash that's liquid that they can get to. And when I say liquid, it means without fees or expenses. So, if it's sitting in an account that's got some tax ramifications, that's not necessarily, even though it's liquid, that's not the best source. Some people can have a home equity line of credit. That can be used as liquidity, something you can get to without high fees or expenses. Having money sitting in like an annuity, as I mentioned before as well, that could be problematic because even though you can take some money out in some policies, a lot of them have high surrender fees to get out of, and you don't want to do that. So, having too much can be a problem because you're not keeping up with inflation. So you want to make sure that your money's working for you and it's staying ahead of inflation. Those are some things that I would keep in mind when thinking about this.
Mark, how does it come to be that a person ends up having too much money sitting in cash? I mean, generally speaking, how does that happen?
Well, if you're a saver, which is a good thing, you tend to build up a lot of cash, and a lot of people end up having a lot of money sitting in banks, which banks typically don't pay very high interest rates. Some of the credit unions pay a little bit higher, but they're still not super competitive compared to what you can get elsewhere. And then if you look at it, they might be buying CDs, and people are saving over time. They've accumulated a lot of money, and money's not working for them. And in the short term, that's okay. But in the long term, again, you're losing purchasing power. So it's important that you maintain the right amount of cash, and that's something that we help our clients with on a daily basis, but making sure that if you have extra money in there, that money is growing and staying ahead of inflation. That doesn't mean you have to put it all in the stock market. You can buy bonds or things that are going to get a little bit higher rate than what you typically get at a bank or a credit.
Well, let's just say that someone calls the number that I'm going to give out here in just a few minutes, and they have a phone call with you, and maybe they become a client. For a client who's gotten used to having a large amount in the bank, what's a way that they can invest more efficiently without suddenly getting themselves into cardiac arrest because they're watching their money now go up and down every day in the market, and it's just really stressing them out?
Sure. So, understanding risk is always important. We do a phenomenal job, in my opinion, of understanding somebody's risk tolerance. And risk, in my opinion, is two different things. One is, how do you feel about risk? And then two, is that risk that you're taking going to keep you on track for your goals? So those two things both need to be taken in consideration. With that being said, understanding how much risk you can take and how much you're willing to take is what's important. We can dial up the risk or dial down the risk depending on how you feel about risk, what's your risk aversion. So it's understanding those sorts of things and building the right portfolio to make sure that you can stay invested when we do have a correction. Now, I didn't say if, but when we have a correction, because, and I'm not trying to scare anybody, we are due for something. This is the longest bull market we've ever been in. And so it's important to understand that and making sure that you're invested appropriately. That's going to keep you on track for your goals, one, and two, that's going to make sure that you stay invested. Because if you get into the market and when the market drops 10% or whatever it might be, and you get out of the market, whoever your advisor is has failed you, because their goal is to keep you invested. That's the only way this works. If you try to time the market or get in and get out, which is timing the market, you're not going to be successful and the whole thing's going to blow up.
Well, we know there's going to be a downturn. We just don't know when, and nobody has a crystal ball to be able to determine that. So Mark's right. I mean, you got to have an advisor who takes care of those things for you, keeps you in the market, and make sure that you are efficient with everything you do. And that's what we talk about a lot here on Saving with Silverman. A lot of people are intrigued with the idea of that 15 to 20 minute introductory phone call. Mark, what do you talk about when you get someone on the phone like that?
Well, what we do is we understand what their goals are. I mean, we know our clients very, very well. So understanding their situation and helping them and coaching them and making sure that we understand what it is. Maybe they're not making a knee-jerk reaction to something, and helping them make better decisions and do something rational than doing something rash and making a decision to get out because it's down on a certain day. But understanding and looking at goals versus just looking at what the market's going to do each and every day. Volatility is here to stay, folks. I'm sorry to tell you that. And so if you're going to be looking at what the market's doing every 5 minutes, it's going to drive you nuts. It's understanding the risk that you're taking and knowing that over time, the markets generally do go up. And that's what we help our clients do in making sure that they have the right mix, and we're adjusting that mix as their goals and objectives change over time.
You've been listening to the Saving with Silverman podcast. If you have any questions at all about your financial situation, please give Mark Silverman a call. Again, his number is 520-333-7601, or go online to savingwithsilverman.com. For Mark Silverman, I'm Ron Stutz. We'll see you next time on the Saving with Silverman podcast.
The Saving with Silverman podcast is brought to you by Silverman & Associates Wealth Management, LLC, based in Tucson, Arizona. The show is available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and everywhere you listen to shows. Subscribe to the show on your favorite app today and never miss an episode. Just search for Saving with Silverman to find us, or visit savingwithsilverman.com to listen to past episodes, to contact Mark, and to learn more about how to make smarter decisions with your money. All matters discussed on this show are for informational purposes only. Opinions expressed are solely those of Silverman & Associates Wealth Management, LLC, and staff. All topics covered are believed to be from reliable sources. However, Silverman & Associates Wealth Management, LLC makes no representation as to its accuracy or completeness. This show shall in no way be construed as a solicitation to sell securities or investment advisory services to residents of any state other than Arizona or where otherwise permitted. Topics should be discussed with your individual advisor prior to implementation. Fee-based financial planning and investment advisory services offered through Silverman & Associates Wealth Management, LLC, a registered investment advisor in the state of Arizona. Insurance products and services are offered through Silverman & Associates, an affiliated company.